This is an article from USA Today. This is an article from 2004. Oh my God, that's so long ago. But it still has a pretty big impact because it's talking about the quote-unquote CSI effect. And we're going to get into what that is, but the CSI effect impacts a lot of jurors and juries currently, as far back as 2004, when CSI, the TV show, sort of like became like the massive hit that everyone watched. But anyways, let's get into this article. It's entitled CSI Effect Has Juries Wanting More Evidence. Again, it's from USA Today, so let's get started. Like viewers across the nation, folks in Galveston, Texas watch a lot of TV shows about crime scene investigators. Jury consultant Robert Hirschhorn couldn't be happier about that. Hirschhorn was hired last year to help defense attorneys pick jurors for the trial of Robert Durst, a millionaire real estate heir who was accused of murdering and dismembering a neighbor, Morris Black. It was a case in which investigators never found Black's head. The defense claimed that wounds to the head might have supported Durst's story that he had killed Black in self-defense. Hirschhorn wanted jurors who were familiar with shows such as CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, to spot the importance of such a gap in the evidence. That wasn't difficult. In a survey of the 500 people in the jury pool, the defense found that about 70% were viewers of CBS's CSI or similar shows, such as Court TV's Forensic Files or NBC's Law and Order. Durst was acquitted in November. To legal analysts, his case seemed an example of how shows such as CSI are affecting action in courthouses across the USA by, among other things, raising jurors' expectations of what prosecutors should produce at trial. Prosecutors, defense lawyers, and judges call it, quote-unquote, the CSI effect, after the crime scene shows that are among the hottest attractions on television. The shows CSI, and CSI Miami in particular, feature high-tech labs and glib and gorgeous techies. By shining a glamorous light on a gory profession, the programs have also helped to draw more students into forensic studies. But the programs also foster what analysts say is the mistaken notion that criminal science is fast and infallible, and always gets its man. That's affecting the way lawyers prepare their cases, as well as the expectations that police and the public place on real crime labs. Real crime scene investigators say that because of the programs, people often have unrealistic ideas of what criminal science can deliver. Like Hirschhorn, many lawyers, judges, and legal consultants say they appreciate how CSI-type shows have increased interest in forensic evidence. Talking about science in the courtroom used to be like talking about geometry, a real jury turnoff, says Hirschhorn of Lewisville, Texas. Now that there's this almost obsession with the TV shows, you can talk to jurors about scientific evidence and just see from the looks on their faces that they find it fascinating. But some defense lawyers say CSI and similar shows make jurors rely too heavily on scientific findings and unwilling to accept that those findings can be compromised by human or technical errors. Prosecutors also have complaints. They say the shows can make it more difficult for them to win convictions in the large majority of cases in which scientific evidence is irrelevant or absent. The lesson that both sides can agree on is what's on TV does seep into the minds of jurors, says Paul Walsh, chief prosecutor in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and president of the National District Attorneys Association. Jurors are going to have information, or what they think is information, in mind. That's the new state of affairs. Lawyers and judges say the CSI effect has become a phenomenon in courthouses across the nation. In Phoenix last month, jurors in a murder trial noticed that a bloody coat introduced as evidence had not been tested for DNA. They alerted the judge. The test hadn't been needed because the defendant had acknowledged being at the murder scene. The judge decided that TV had taught jurors about DNA tests, but not enough about when to use them. 3 years ago, in Richmond, Virginia, jurors in a murder trial asked the judge whether a cigarette butt found during the investigation could be tested for links to the defendant. Defense attorneys had ordered DNA tests but had not yet introduced them into evidence. The jury's hunch was correct. The test exonerated the defendant, and the jury acquitted him. In Arizona, Illinois, and California, prosecutors now use quote-unquote negative evidence witnesses to try to assure jurors that it is not unusual for real crime scene investigators to fail to find DNA, fingerprints, and other evidence at crime scenes. In Massachusetts, prosecutors have begun to ask judges for permission to question prospective jurors about their TV watching habits. Several states already allow that. Last year, in Wilmington, Delaware, federal researchers studying how juries evaluate scientific evidence staged dozens of simulated trials. At one point, a juror struggling with especially complicated DNA evidence lamented that such problems never came up on CSI. The CSI effect also is being felt beyond the courtroom. At West Virginia University, forensic science is the most popular undergraduate major for the second year in a row, attracting 13% of incoming freshmen this fall. In June, supporters of an Ohio library drew an overflow crowd of 200 plus to a luncheon speech on DNA by titling it CSI Dayton. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Crime Lab has seen another version of the CSI effect. 4 technicians have left the lab for lucrative jobs as technical advisors to crime scene programs. They found a way to make science pay, lab director Barry Fisher says. The show's popularity soars. This next part is all about the show itself, which, while cool, is less what I'm trying to get you to really learn. So I'm going to skip this section that says show's popularity soars. It talks about CSI Miami and CSI and when it's premiering and who's in it. So I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to go down to the departing from reality section. So departing from reality. Some of the science on CSI is state-of-the-art. Real lab technicians can, for example, lift DNA profiles from cigarette butts, candy wrappers, and gobs of spit, just as their Hollywood counterparts do. But some of what's on TV is far-fetched. Real technicians don't pour caulk into knife wounds to make a cast of the weapon. That wouldn't work in soft tissue. Machines that can identify cologne from scents on clothing are still in the experimental phase. A criminal charge based on neuro-linguistic programming, detecting lies by the way a person's eyes shift, likely would be dismissed by a judge. But real scientists say CSI's main fault is this: the science is always above reproach. You never see a case where the sample is degraded or the lab work is faulty or the test results don't solve the crime, says Dan Crane, president and DNA specialist at Forensic Bioinformatics in Fairborn, Ohio. These things happen all the time in the real world. Defense lawyers say the misconception that crime scene evidence and testing are always accurate helps prosecutors. Jurors expect the criminal justice system to work better than it does, says Betty Lane DePore, a criminal defense lawyer in Richmond, Virginia, who has a master's degree in forensic science. She notes that during the past 15 years, human errors and corruption have skewed test results in crime labs in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, California, Texas, and Washington state. But prosecutors say the shows help defense lawyers. Jurors who are regular viewers, they say, expect testable evidence to be present at all crime scenes. In fact, they say evidence such as DNA and fingerprints, the staple of CSI plots, is available in only a small minority of cases and can yield inconclusive results. Defense attorneys will get up there and bang the rail and say, "Where were the DNA tests?" to take advantage of the idea that in the juror's mind, it should be there, says Joshua Markey, a prosecutor in Astoria, Oregon. You've got to do a lot of jury preparation to defeat that. Some prosecutors have gone to great lengths to lower jurors' expectations about such evidence. In Belleville, Illinois, last spring, prosecutor Gary Duncan called on 7 nationally recognized experts to testify about scientific evidence against a man accused of raping and murdering a 10-year-old girl. The witnesses included specialists in human and animal DNA, shoe print evidence, population statistics, and human mitochondrial DNA. genetic material that is inherited only from one's mother and that seldom is used in criminal cases. Duncan won a conviction. I wanted to be certain the jury was clear on the evidence and its meaning, he says. These days, juries demand that. CSI producers acknowledge that they have taken some liberties with facts and the capabilities of science, but they say it's necessary to keep their storylines moving. Elizabeth Devine, a former crime lab technician who writes and produces episodes of CSI Miami, spoke at a training seminar for prosecutors last year in Columbia, South Carolina. She said that if the shows did not cut the time needed to perform DNA tests from weeks to minutes, a villain might not be caught before episode 5. For all of CSI's faults, some lab technicians say they have a soft spot for the TV version of their world. It's great for getting people interested in careers in forensic science, says Barbara Lewin, Director of DNA Analysis for the Illinois State Police. Terry Milton, President of Mitotyping Technologies in State College, Pennsylvania, says the programs have made jury duty something people now look forward to. And Fisher says the shows have given science types like himself some unexpected cash out. When I tell someone what I do, I never have to explain it now, he says. They know what a crime scene technician does. At least they think they do.